Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, counter-spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve.
Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into our time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
An episode of radio's outstanding theater of thrills, Suspense, from 79 years ago, May 25th, 1944, the second part of Orson Welles and in Donovan's Brain. And we thank you for making us a part of your Thursday. This is the 25th day of May. Today is the 145th day of the year, 220 days remaining until we get to 2024. And one of the people who celebrates birthdays today goes by the name of Bojangles. In 1787, the Constitutional Convention convened in Philadelphia under the leadership of George Washington in order to establish a new government. 1925, John Scopes indicted for teaching Darwin's theory of evolution. 1935, American track star Jesse Owens broke 3 world records and tied another in just a little over an hour. The legendary Babe Ruth hit his 714th and final home run against the Pittsburgh Pirates in 1935. His record stood until 1974, broken by Hank Aaron. 1961, President Kennedy announced before a special joint session of Congress his goal to initiate a project to put a man on the moon before the end of the decade.
I therefore ask the Congress, above and beyond the increases I have earlier requested for space activities, to provide the funds which are needed to meet the following national goals. First, I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal, before this decade is out, of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth. No single space project in this period will be more impressive to mankind or more important for the long-range exploration of space, and none will be so difficult or expensive to accomplish.
And we would do it. Neil Armstrong, the first man to set foot on the moon, July 20th, 1969. So it only took a little over 8 years. Gateway Arch, dedicated in St. Louis on this date in 1968. Midnight Cowboy, the only X-rated film to win a Best Picture Oscar, was released. Of course, that would be replaced, the X designation, to NC-17. Alrighty, the worst air disaster in U.S. history, excluding the September 11 attacks, occurred in 1979 when a DC-10 crashed at Chicago's O'Hare Airport, 270 killed. Hands Across America, a benefit event to fight homelessness and hunger, took place on this date in 1986.
Yuppies view this as a return to 60s values. Senior citizens view this as a neighbor helping neighbor, a return to that old tradition. Parents view it as a way of bringing their families together. Democrats view it as grassroots activism, and Republicans view it as private sector initiative. Kids view it as the biggest party in the history of the world.
Organizer Fred Draws, 6.5 million people held hands in the human chain for 15 minutes along a path across the continental U.S. The House of Representatives released the Cox Report on this date in 1999, which detailed the People's Republic of China's nuclear espionage against the U.S. over the prior 2 decades. In 2011, Oprah Winfrey aired her last show, ending her 25-year run of The Oprah Winfrey Show. And in 2012, the SpaceX Dragon became the first commercial spacecraft to successfully rendezvous and berth with the International Space Station. Passing away on this date in history, composer Gustav Holst, Mel on Alice, Vic Tayback, and Charles Nelson Riley. And we all remember that man. A delightful fellow. Born on this date, Ralph Waldo Emerson, a dancer you probably know well, or at least you've heard about, Bojangles. I heard a man Bojangles and it danced for you. Bill Bojangles Robinson, the king of tapology, born on this date in 1878, an incredibly gifted tap dancer. In addition to his live performances, he danced in 2 movies with Shirley Temple, The Little Colonel and Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm. Also born on this date, the heavyweight boxing champion Gene Tunney, a publisher for Random House magazine, but probably known better to a lot of you for his roles on What's My Line, Bennett Cerf, and also the later version of To Tell the Truth, Bennett Cerf, born on this date. Claude Akins, a very fine actor. Lyricist, songwriter Hal David. Big band singer Kitty Callan, Little Things Mean a Lot. Beverly Sills, the soprano. Tom T. Hall, that song is a-driving me crazy. And I think the other one, I Love Beer. Yeah, I think that was his song too. Tom T. Hall, born on this date. Actress Dixie Carter, born on this date as well. And Anne Heche, from Donnie Brasco and Psycho, and Ellen DeGeneres' ex, Anne Heche, born on this date in history. She passed away last year at the age of 53. Other birthdays today of people who are still with us on this mortal coil. You remember him as Gandalf in Lord of the Rings, Magneto in the X-Men movies, and Cogsworth in Beauty and the Beast. Ian McKellen, 84 years old today, out and proud. The lady who sang I'm Not Lisa. Yes, Jessie Coulter, 80 years old today. The man behind Grover, Miss Piggy, and Fozzie Bear, Frank Oz, 79 today. Actor-comedian Mike Myers is 60.
Dr. Evil. I didn't spend 6 years in evil medical school to be called Mr. Thank you very much.
Don't mess with me, I'm one crazy mofo. I had to pop a cop because he wasn't giving me my props in Oaktown. No? I heard that somewhere.
Austin Powers, he's the snake to my mongoose. Or the mongoose to my snake. Either way, it's bad. I do know animals. But I do know this. This time it's personal. Kill him.
From Austin Powers as Dr. Evil, Mike Myers, 60 years old today. The maid Minnie in The Help, who got back-to-back Academy Award nominations, the first time ever for an African-American actress, I should say. Octavia Spencer, 53 today. Daily Show alumni Demetrius Martin is 50 years old. From NBC's Las Vegas, actress Molly Sims, 50 today. Singer Lauryn Hill, 48. And some wrestlers to tell you about. Alberto Del Rio in the WWE, now Alberto El Patron, 46. From the Anoa'i Samoan family, the WWE champion Roman Reigns, 37. And third-generation wrestler Bo Dallas. Yes, his grandfather was Blackjack Mulligan, his father was Mike Rotunda, and his brother Bray Wyatt. Yes, so I was right that the other day when I mentioned Bray Wyatt being a third-generation wrestler. Bo Dallas, 33 today, and I'm not sure what he's doing now. Anyway, those some of the people who celebrate the 25th day of May as their birthday. If this is your birthday...
Hi, we're the 4 freshmen, and we just want to say, Happy birthday to you!
And we go back 79 years, May 25th, 1944. Orson Welles in Donovan's Brain. Or I think it's the other way around. Donovan's Brain is in Wells. That goes as an episode of Suspense, the second part of the episode on this Thursday edition of Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox here on your favorite radio station. Now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, Orson Welles in an episode of radio's outstanding theater of thrill, suspense, and the conclusion of Donovan's Brain.
Roma Wines present
Suspense.
Roma Wines, made in California for enjoyment throughout the world.
Salud. Your health, senor.
Roma Wines toast the world. The wine for your table is Roma Wine, made in California for enjoyment throughout the world.
This is the man in black.
here to introduce this weekly half hour of Suspense. Tonight from Hollywood, we again bring you Mr. Orson Welles in the second of two consecutive performances starring Mr. Welles as the protagonist of Kurt Siodmak's novel, Donovan's Brain. The producer of Suspense and its sponsors, the Roma Wine Company of Fresno, California, felt this story so unusual that it merited more than our usual time. So in somewhat of a departure from established radio formulas, we are bringing you the story of Donovan's Brain in two parts. Part one you heard last Thursday, and tonight you will hear part two, the completion of Donovan's Brain. And now with part two of Donovan's Brain, and with the performance of Orson Welles as Dr. Patrick Corey, we again hope to keep you in suspense.
As I sit now outside my laboratory door writing, under the heading Experiment 87, this final entry in my casebook, I know that these are the last words I shall ever write upon this earth. For those who seek some explanation, I refer them simply to this casebook. Let them read it carefully. Perhaps they may then in some measure understand, if not condone, the awful circumstances under which I have been driven to the most appalling crime against God and nature that it has ever been the fate of mortal man to perpetrate. August 24th. It's now 6 weeks, exactly 42 days, since I began the experiment. For 6 weeks, by artificial means alone, I have kept alive a human brain, completely detached from the body, floating in a bath of serum, nourished by a synthetic blood plasma fed through its arteries by an electric pump. It has remained alive. Not only alive, but I have succeeded in communicating with it. For I've even induced new growth of brain cells and so tremendously increased its mental faculties that by sheer brain power alone, it has actually been able to communicate its thoughts to me. And each day, my communion with that living, pulsing mass of gray matter that was the brain of William Donovan becomes stronger and stronger. Even now I sense it striving to reveal some plan to me, something so truly world-shaking in its implications that only such an organism, developed to a point thousands of years ahead of its time, could ever have conceived it. So far I sense this only, but soon I shall know. Indeed, I shall be partner in its execution. What a fool I was ever to have considered for a moment my wife's demand that I end the experiment. It's because I refused, of course, that Janice left me a week ago without so much as a word of explanation or farewell. Even my son David and my assistant Schrodt are privy to this conspiracy to thwart me, for when I ask about Janice, they pretend to know nothing, or they seek to avoid my questions. But the brain will live. Yes, I can hear it now. Its delta waves quite audible over the amplifying system I've arranged for it. Almost as though it were calling to me, trying to speak to me. The brain will live. Donovan? What is it? What are you trying to tell me? Go on, Donovan. I'm listening. Go on. Go on. Go. Who is it?
Me, Patrick, and David.
What do you want?
I want to talk to you, David.
I've no time to talk. I'm busy. I'm sorry. Go away, I tell you. I'm busy.
Please.
Can't you two leave me alone? All right. What is it? What is it?
Patrick, won't you come into the study with us for a few minutes?
What have you got to say? You say right here. You know I can't leave the laboratory.
Dad, it's only that, well, we wanted to talk to you in private.
Oh, don't tell me that you're afraid of this poor mass of brain cells here.
It's not that, Dad, but never mind, David. At least turn that thing off then, will you, Patrick?
What difference would it make? It could still hear, couldn't it? Well, what is it then?
Well, it's about Mother.
So, she put you up to this, did she? I thought the truth would come out sometime.
Dad, listen.
She's tried to stop this experiment from the beginning. She thought she could blackmail me into quitting by leaving me, and she still does. Now she's using you as a go-between.
Patrick, listen a minute, won't you? We haven't heard a word from Janice. We don't even know where she is. That's what we've come to talk to you about.
Oh, have you? Well, how could I know where she is?
Well, because you were the last person seen with her, Dad.
I was?
Don't you remember, Patrick? You took her into town with you. You wouldn't tell any of us why.
Yes, of course, the moment I've forgotten, but what of it?
Well, don't you remember what happened then?
Of course I remember. She left me, that's all.
Where, Dad? Where did she leave you? What were you doing?
I don't know. We were in some big public building, City Hall, courthouse, taxis or something. Next thing I knew, she'd simply disappeared.
Is that all? Didn't she say anything? Didn't she at least tell you why she was going?
No, I remember what she said. It's been a week or more. I've hardly slept. You know, I've been working night and day.
Yes, that's just it.
What do you mean by that?
Patrick, you say this. The brain communicates with you, tells you things about his past life, suggests thoughts.
Yes,
Well, if the brain can make you think of things, mightn't it also be able to make you forget things?
You're out of your mind.
Dad, are you sure? Are you sure you don't know what's happened to Mother?
No, I tell you, no, I don't
Patrick,
know.
don't you see what you might have done?
What?
In heaven's name, stop now while there's still time.
Get out of here.
While there's still time to help Janice, if there is. While there's still time to help yourself. Shut off the current. Let the brain die. Kill it, Patrick. Kill it.
Get out, both of you. Get out. Get out. August 26th. The brain continues to communicate thought fragments more and more easily, but nothing further on what I've come to think of as the plan. I'm now sleeping a great deal, but my dreams are becoming increasingly troublesome, although I'm at a loss to analyze them. Most frequent is a sort of vast cosmic ballet presided over by the colossal figure of a young man whom I seem to recognize, yet I never see his face. It's as though the entire population of the Earth were moving past him in review at his command.
Sure. Now. Do it now. Now. Sure, now.
Help me, someone!
Shut! Dad, let go, Dad!
David!
Had to, Dad.
Never mind now. He'll help me with Schrott. He's fainted.
No, David, don't let him.
It's all right now.
Here's a glass of water. What's the matter? You're trembling all over. You're looking at me that way for you. Look how frightened after death.
Dad, you...
What happened here anyway? I came and found you on the floor with your hands around your own throat. That meant for me. Why's your luggage all packed?
I was going to leave.
Leave? In the middle of the night? Why?
Because
the fuse box has been opened. It was you, Schrott. You were going to shut off the current. You were going to kill the brain.
Patrick, you tried to strangle me.
What?
That's true, Dad. That's why I had to slap you.
But that's absurd. I came in here and found Schrott with his hands around his own throat. He was strangling himself.
Dad, please think a minute. Nobody can strangle himself.
Look at these marks on my throat.
No.
You think I could have done that?
Well, it's not possible, and yet...
It's true, Patrick, that I tried to shut off the current. I was afraid for you. But as I opened the fuse box, I heard the delta waves in the laboratory suddenly become stronger and louder than they'd ever been before. And then...
Then I?
Yes.
Then the brain knew?
Yeah, you even spoke in Donovan's voice,
Donovan's
Patrick.
Voice, his
That
voice.
recurring phrase of his, sure, in his very tones, his very accent.
Yes, sure.
You've created a monster, Patrick.
It has the power to make me commit murder. The brain must die.
Pull the switch in the fuse box, Patrick. It will only be a matter of seconds,
Yes.
and then...
Yes, But I...
You've got to, Patrick.
Schrott, David, help me. I can't move. Come in. Pull the switch, honey. Schrott, David, go on. You too?
It's paralyzed, Dispatch. The brain won't let itself be killed.
Then it has the power to live on. And on. To command us as long as we live. To make us do anything it wants. To kill. Murder.
Dad, what are we going to do?
Listen.
The brain.
It's laughing. September 7th. Shot his left. He had to, of course, for his own protection, if nothing else. Before he left, he swore to eternal secrecy and was going to try to find Janice. The very thought that any harm might come to her through me is enough to drive me almost mad. As for David, although he's strong enough to prevent any untoward accidents, I don't know. He's volunteered to stay with me. He'll sleep at night behind locked doors. We must devote every faculty we possess together and independently to finding a way of destroying the brain. Perhaps while it sleeps.
Radio's outstanding theater of thrill suspense, Orson Welles, from May 25th, 1944, Donovan's Brain. Thank you for tuning in to Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. We'll have the news from 79 years ago today when we continue following these messages from your favorite radio station. Just going to take a minute here to tell you about the big savings going on now, the clearance sale at mypillow.com. And you know, I've talked about how in my office I have a pair of my slippers, and they're really comfortable, and they're on clearance right now. The mypillow.com slippers, $25 a pair, limit 10. And I would buy 3 or 4 more pairs. Unfortunately, they're out of my size. They also have sheets, pillowcases, clothing items, all on special right now. Go to mypillow.com, click on the clearance tab at the top of the page, use my promo code Wyatt, or call 1-800-928-4715. Limited sizes remaining in the MyPillow slippers, limited colors on other items. mypillow.com, clearance tab, promo code Wyatt, 1-800-928-4715. You're listening to one of the top historical podcasts in Poland, Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. That's true. That's the numbers that they show me periodically from one of the people who rate those sort of things. I'm surprised we have a large number of listeners in Poland. In fact, it's our 5th most listened to nation. The U.S., then Canada, then the U.K., Philippines, and Poland. And then it's followed by Mexico, Australia, Japan, India, and Germany. And we thank everybody who listens, no matter where you are around the world. Just goes to prove we have listeners around the world. We are listening right now to an episode of Suspense, Donovan's Brain, starring Orson Welles. This was broadcast Thursday, May 25th, 1944. In the newspapers of that Thursday, 79 years ago, these were some of the headlines. A summary of news from the battlefronts. Italian battle ranges toward crisis as heavily supported forces rip Hitler Line to shreds, recaptured Terracia, Monte Alto, and Pico. Americans burst from Anzio beachhead to cut Appian Way south of Cisterna. Pre-invasion air attack mounts toward peak in Western Europe with 7,000 sorties in daylight, followed by another night blast at Berlin. In Eastern Europe, all quiet on the Russian front. In the Pacific, Aleutian-based planes bomb Paramusha and Tumushu in the Kurils. Nimitz planes hit Panape. And in Asia, Allied drive to regain Burma road slowed by weather, terrain, and enemy resistance. Possibly signaling a big new offensive on the Eastern Front, the Moscow radio said in a broadcast of the Army today, soon you will be called on to accomplish the liberation of Soviet territory and also to liberate other European nations from the German fascist oppressor. Meanwhile, the Berlin radio told German editors last night to stand by Sunday for possible special announcement, while a spokesman from General Dwight D. Eisenhower's headquarters broadcast a third set of pre-invasion instructions to the European underground. From Ashland City, Tennessee, a 42-year-old man sat in Cheatham County Circuit Court yesterday and heard himself convicted of unlawful cohabitation with a 17-year-old girl. Rising dramatically, he swallowed the contents of a small bottle and a few minutes later was pronounced dead, according to the county sheriff. The woman sheriff who witnessed the act said the convicted man had stated previously he would not be sent to prison. J.H. Jim Cooper, widely known news commentator who each morning admonished school children to be careful crossing the streets, injured seriously yesterday in a Columbus, Ohio traffic accident. Cooper suffered a skull fracture when his automobile collided with another car and he was thrown into the street. Known to thousands of listeners to WBNS radio as Genial Jim, Cooper has broadcast news reports over the station for the last 9 years. He's also sold approximately $7 million worth of war bonds. A shouting, stamping, and applauding progressive Negro Democrat Party convention yesterday demanded that its delegates, 18 of them, to the National Democrat Convention be seated in places of delegates elected by the White State Democrat Convention last week. To shouts of "You tell 'em, brother," and "Now you're talking," J.M. Hinton, Secretary of the Negro Citizens Committee of South Carolina, asserted the Negro wants peace and happiness if he can get it, but if it takes shedding of blood, like Congressman John Long of Union said it would, he's not the only red-blooded American in South Carolina. The bizarre marriage in which one woman was married to another for 24 days before finding out her husband wasn't a man was annulled in Los Angeles Superior Court yesterday. Shirley Mae Boston brought the suit, testifying she married Jerry Boston, 30-year-old war worker in Las Vegas, on June 14th of 1942, and they separated when she learned the truth on July 8th of 1942. She said that on that latter day, her husband's sister, Hazel Elliott of Napa, California, told her the marriage should have never taken place, that he was not a man but a woman posing as a man, and that his real name was Tremia Mildred Boston. Those some of the day's top news stories as reported in the newspapers of Thursday, May 25th, 1944 on your radio. More of Donovan's Brain, starring Orson Welles, an episode of Suspense. The conclusion follows these messages on this Thursday, Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. We wrap up this week of Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox with an episode of The Fred Allen Show. 76 years ago, May 26, 1946, King for a Day. Fred and guest Jack Benny are heard on Fred's brand new quiz show, King for a Day, and it is my favorite episode ever. That's on Friday's Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. But now the conclusion of this Thursday edition, Suspense, Donovan's Brain, starring Orson Welles, 79 years ago, May 25th, 1944.
It seems to have developed tremendous powers of the subconscious, which operate even in sleep. The recurring dream, the now oppressive sense of some further task to be performed, continues. If Janice were only here, even her presence, I know, would help immeasurably to combat this fearful thing. Terrible thought crosses my mind. Could Trot have left if the brain had not, for some reasons of its own, actually wanted him to leave? September 10th. My thoughts are less and less my own. The dream of the young giant bestriding the earth, the figure without a face, pursues me now, even in my waking hours. Increasingly, I seem to live in a world of evil fantasy, peopled and controlled by the mind of William Donovan.
Sure. It's not much time, but time enough. Time enough. Sure. Time enough. Sure.
Hello? Who is it?
Patrick?
Oh, Janice. Janice, my darling. Janice.
Hello, Patrick.
Sweetheart, darling.
How are you, Patrick?
Oh, I'm well enough. But Janice, where have you been?
Where have I been?
Yes, you had no idea. I've been half crazy worrying about you. Did Schrott finally find you?
Yes. Schrott found me.
Janice, why did you leave me that day? Why didn't you at least tell me? Where did you go, darling?
I was with friends.
Well, did Schrott tell you anything?
No, Nothing special.
Well, Janice, I know I haven't been a very good husband these last months. I haven't been very kind or very considerate or even civilized. I haven't been myself, Janice.
I know, Patrick. My poor
If
darling.
you'd only known how I missed you after you left, how I needed you. I need your help, Janice.
I know,
Terribly.
Patrick.
Terribly.
I came back to help you.
But what?
Where's David?
He's asleep in the next room. That is, lately he's tried to make it a point to sleep only when I didn't. Trying to keep an eye on things.
Patrick, I'm going to help you. All I can. Any way I can. But first, I want to take David away.
David? Why?
Because I don't think it's good for him to be here.
No?
I don't think that you... Patrick, I don't want to torment you. It's only that perhaps we can find a way if we know all the facts.
What, Janice?
Don't you know, really, where I was?
No, how could I?
Don't you remember where you took me?
Where I took you? I don't...
You took me to a psychiatric clinic. You had me committed to a madhouse.
No, it's Janice.
No, not you. Donovan.
Donovan.
It was because I tried to make you stop the experiment.
Yes.
Kill the brain. As you left me there, you even spoke in Donovan's voice. Sure, you said.
Sure.
I thought they were the last words I would ever hear you speak.
Oh, Janice, forgive me. Forgive me. Darling.
I couldn't persuade anyone. I was sane.
How sweet.
After what you told them. Everything I said only made them think I was mad. I'm not mad. Am I, Patrick? I'm not mad. Am I?
Janice will be gone for some 3 hours. I've sent her into town for Dr. Zanger, the psychiatrist. Maybe he can help, but now suddenly I'm overcome with the thought of the humiliation I shall have to suffer when other medical men become aware of the position I'm in. It'll be the end of my career and my reputation, all my hopes. Folly to think that Zanger'd keep it to himself. Indeed, he'd have no right to. I can bear it if I must, but another way, a possibility occurs to me, and I've been thinking it over. There's no harm in trying it in any event. I must try. I have 3 hours. David!
Yes, Dad?
David, what's your blood type? Do you know your blood type?
Matter of fact, I don't think I do. Why?
No matter, we can easily find out. David, I think at last I know a way.
To kill the brain?
It's simple. It's perfectly natural, and yet 9 chances out of 10 is something Donovan has never known about. I'll do it myself. Unfortunately, my blood type and his are... they're the same.
Transfusion?
Of course, I have to replenish the blood substance periodically. Anyway, it's about time to do it again. I've always used my own because it was the same type as his, but if yours is a different type, the right type, David.
You mean the wrong type?
Yes, you've given the wrong... The brain will die given the wrong type.
Yeah.
I'm sure of that. I know it.
But suppose the brain knows it knows other things.
I've thought of that. It's a chance we'll have to take if you're willing, David, my boy.
Of course I am.
Then we'll take the blood sample now. Come into the laboratory.
I only have the right blood type.
Sure.
Rather the wrong type.
If you haven't, we'll find someone who has. Maybe shot. Now, lie down there on the table, David. We want a tourniquet on your arm here.
I'll
A
put it
small
on.
syringe will do it.
Go ahead. I'm ready.
David, don't watch me. It'll be easier if you don't. For me.
That's a funny one. Coming from you.
Well, doctors are never quite as steady with members of their own family, you know. Ready?
Sure.
Ready. There we are. You all right?
Yeah.
You'll be through in just a second.
You getting it all right?
Yes, sure. Just a second now.
Dad, I'm sleepy.
You'll be over it in a minute.
But what's the matter? Why am I so sleepy?
You'll be all right.
Sleepy. So sleepy.
Sure. That's what an anesthetic is for. Make you sleep. I was somewhat surprised to find the instruments sterilized, already laid out, but I worked more rapidly and skillfully than ever before in my life, I think. I made an incision just below the hairline, laying back the scalp as far as the base of the skull. I trepanned the cranium at 2-centimeter intervals, working back and downwards to the upper edge of the occipital bone. With the Geely saw, I cut through the connecting bone structure and removed the entire top of the cranium, placing it in saline solution to preserve it. I made a semicircular incision in the dura mater, laying it to one side, exposing the brain. As I dissected out the facial, auditory, and pneumogastric nerves to free the medulla oblongata, I became conscious of an insistent clamoring, something like a mounting hysteria in the distant reaches of my mind. Almost as strong as the irresistible compulsion that drove me on. But my hand did not falter. With a sure stroke, I severed the spinal cord just below the first cervical nerve. As I make this last entry with that awful guilt upon my soul, even now I cannot fully comprehend how it has been possible for any man, by mortal or immortal means, to be driven to such a crime. Even the divinity himself did not demand of Abraham that final sacrifice of expiation, when he, with his only begotten son, ascended the Mount of Olives. Perhaps Schrott is right. Perhaps there is indeed in man some spark of the divine that will elude our test tubes and our laboratories until the end of time. Perhaps that is the one thing that even Donovan did not foresee. I only know that at the instant my son died under my own hand, I was set free. At that instant, I saw and understood for the first time that monstrous plan born in the brain of William Donovan, of which I was to be the instrument. It was the plan I had glimpsed but never grasped in the recurring dream. Donovan did aspire to the domination of the world. And with those tremendous mental faculties that I myself had given him, it was literally within his power to become the absolute ruler of all mankind. Only one thing was lacking, a young, strong body into which those ever-growing brain cells could graft and affix themselves to live on, and on perhaps for centuries. He chose the body of my son, and now, my son, at last too late. I am free to destroy this foul thing of my creation. I know it as surely as I know that my own life must be forfeit. And the brain also knows. I can hear the disturbed, erratic oscillations of the delta waves coming through the laboratory door. But there's no room left in me now for fear. I shall take the 6 steps from the desk where I'm writing this across to the laboratory door. How often I've taken them in happier times. I shall open the door, close it behind me for the last time, and write finis to the mortal life of Patrick Arthur Corey and the brain of William Horace Donovan. May others learn from the record I leave here the lessons I have learned so bitterly and profit by them. And for the things that I have done, may God have mercy on my soul.
Phoenix, Arizona, September the 15th. The bodies of Dr. Patrick Arthur Corey and his son David were found in Dr. Corey's own laboratory early today. Young Corey had apparently died on the operating table as a result of a delicate brain operation performed by his father. In the case of Dr. Corey, medical authorities gave us their opinion that he might have died of shock as a result of the unsuccessful operation on his son. A curious feature of the case was the fact that numerous pieces of tissue identified as being from a human brain were found scattered about the laboratory floor, while a larger section of brain was found in the midst of an elaborate apparatus, evidently part of a scientific experiment. Medical authorities stated, however, that they were unable to explain the nature of the apparatus and that the brain itself was in such a state of decomposition as to indicate that it had been dead and slowly decaying for at least 3 months. Dr. Corey is survived by his wife, Janice. She was committed to the County Asylum for the Insane late this afternoon. Burial of Dr. Corey will be at the Mount of Olives Cemetery.
And so closes Donovan's Brain, Part 2, the completion of 2 half-hour presentations of Kurt Siodmak's story presenting Orson Welles as star of Suspense. Suspense is produced and directed by William Spear.
This is Orson Welles. Next week, Mr. William Spear tells me, and he'd like me to pass the information on to you, that Suspense will bring 2 exceptionally fine artists, Miss Ida Lupino and Mr. Vincent Price, in a play by one of radio's outstanding authors, Lucille Fletcher. I want to hear that, and I know you will, too.
Money invested in war bonds now helps ensure a healthy, prosperous post-war America, the kind of America we will want for our children as well as ourselves. Don't forget, then, next Thursday you will hear Ida Lupino and Vincent Price in Suspense.
May 25th, 1944, Suspense on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. I want to urge you, listen tomorrow to this hour of Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, because it's a great show. The Fred Allen Show. Visit our webpage, classicradio.stream. There you can stream our shows on demand. You can learn about building a classic radio collection of your own. You can contact me there, find our social media links, a list of places where our shows are available via podcast, and you can also buy me a copy to help us acquire additional classic radio collections and maintain our distribution channels. That's at classicradio.stream. Thanks so much for spending part of your Thursday with us. Tell all of your friends the greatest radio shows of all time are right here at this spot on the dial. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite radio station.